It wasn't supposed to be something serious. It was just for thrill. But now it's one of my biggest regrets. People of Reddit, have you ever made a mistake like this? How do you deal with the consequences of it? I know I messed up big time and it kills me, but I don't know what else to do. My husband, age 44, and I, age 39, have been married for 6.5 years. My husband and I have a little boy who's 5. We met because a friend thought we might hit it off. Back then, neither of us were really thinking about something serious. We were just enjoying ourselves, not expecting anything. But somehow, we clicked and ended up being together, just us two. After about 2 years of dating, we decided to get married. My husband works with computers at Google. I work in the sales department of an insurance company. Our family life was going well. We had everything until I messed it all up. It all started 5 months ago. My husband had gotten a promotion at work. He had to work extra hours after that. Whenever he came back home, he was always tired. We stopped getting intimate with each other. It seemed like every time I tried to make a move, he brushed it off with some excuse about being tired or busy. His behavior was getting to me, but I tried my best not to let it affect me too much. I began putting all my energy into work. There was this big client my company was eyeing, and I was giving it my all to seal the deal. My promotion hinged on getting this client on board with our company. His name is Sam, and he is 47 years old. Sam had some small fintech company, and if he got the corporate health insurance from our company, it would have been a huge deal for us. I was responsible for getting in contact with Sam and explaining to him everything he needed to know. My boss had told me that I should not leave any stone unturned and do everything required to get Sam's company with us. I understood his desperation. The insurance market was going really low at this point, and we needed all the clients we could to sustain us in the industry. My boss had also told me that instead of getting all professional, I should be friendly with Sam. That way we can earn his trust. He had told me I did what I was told and stopped being very professional and rigid with Sam. I tried my best not to let my husband's behavior frustrate me, but it was really hard. It felt like a cycle that just kept repeating itself. Finally, one day, I couldn't take it anymore, and I confronted him. I asked him straight out what was going on. I wanted to know if he wasn't attracted to me anymore or if there was someone else. He brushed it off, saying it was nothing and that I was making a big deal out of nothing. It's just the stress from work. He had said I believed him and didn't initiate anything in the bedroom after that. I started putting all my focus on work. Our son had gone for the summer camp, so I didn't feel like going home after work earlier. Whenever our son wasn't at home and we would get time alone, it would be our time filled with passion and intimacy. And now it was just lonely. We didn't even talk. Forget about getting intimate. My meetings with Sam were going well. He was a funny dude. Good looking too. There are a lot of formalities and procedures about corporate health insurance, so we used to meet to discuss all that over meals. I tried to maintain a balance between professional and friendly with him, but failed real bad at that. Whenever I had lunch or coffee with Sam, I noticed he said things that seemed a bit like flirting, but it was subtle. I'd brush it off, thinking he was just being friendly, and I was overthinking it. Then, one day during lunch, I accidentally spilled water on my top, and I caught Sam's eyes lingering on my cleavage. I quickly started talking about work or something, and then he started looking at my face. I really enjoyed the way he looked at me. It made me feel so good. It was probably because I wasn't getting any attention from my husband at home. I knew it was wrong to enjoy other men's attention when I married, but my husband wasn't interested in me anymore. I was frustrated from all the times he had rejected my approach in bed. It had a bad impact on my self-esteem as well, due to work. I had actually become sort of friends with Sam. He started taking me out for meals, which were not related to work at all. I didn't mind it. I welcomed the distraction. In fact, my attraction to him couldn't be denied. I didn't mean for it to become anything. It was just a distraction from the awkward situation at home. My husband had started to spend most of his time in his office. By the time he was home, I used to be done with my dinner. He would have his dinner and then go to sleep. The home was merely like a hotel from him. Now, since I had stopped initiating anything with my husband and noticed he wasn't going to make a move anytime soon, I found myself drawn elsewhere. It was wrong, and I knew I shouldn't have done it, but I couldn't stop myself. One day during lunch with Sam, I started rubbing my foot against his legs. The interest in his eyes was clear. I was tired of being neglected by my own husband. That night, I did what I shouldn't have done. I slept with Sam. I went to his home with him. The frustration of all the days made me do something I never had thought I would have done. I left for my home in the middle of the night while Sam was still sleeping. I didn't know what to say to him as I got into my car. I saw I had 2 missed calls from my husband. I hoped to God that he had slept by the time I reached home. I didn't want to face him. When I reached home, I saw my husband was fast asleep. I felt a bit relieved and then went to take a shower. The next morning, when my husband asked me where I was last night, I just told him that I had some work meeting which ran late. He didn't even pay much attention to it and continued eating his toast. I felt guilty for lying to him, but his lack of interest in me was still bothering me. I had decided that I won't see Sam anymore. As the contract was nearly finished, I figured I wouldn't have to see Sam much at work. I made a choice that it was just a one-time occurrence. I had a family to consider. I couldn't act recklessly. So I went to the office and tried to shut out everything. My husband's changing behavior weighed heavily on me, and he had no idea how much it was affecting me. I focused on my work for the whole week. I spent my evenings at my desk because I knew no one was waiting for me at home like earlier. My son was still at the summer camp and wouldn't be back for another month. I tried to talk to him during the week, but he was always so busy with his activities that he didn't even have time to talk to me properly. At least he was having fun. Sam didn't contact me after that night. I sort of expected it. Even though I had decided that it was a one-night thing, it still felt weird that he didn't try to even call me once. I was leaving my office on Friday when I saw Sam waiting for me outside my office. To say I was surprised to see him would be an understatement. He approached me and hugged me tightly, saying he missed me. I was taken aback and felt a mix of shock and surprise. I explained firmly that what happened that night couldn't be repeated, that it was a mistake. Sam seemed hurt by my words. As I tried to pull away, he held on, insisting he didn't believe me, adamant that it wasn't a mistake. "You cannot deny the attraction between us," were his exact words. I'll be honest with you all. The moment he said this, my decision that it was only a night. One thing broke. I wanted to kiss him again. And so I did. He took me to his car in the parking lot, and we got intimate with each other. I had never been intimate with anyone like this in a car. It was a new feeling, and I loved it. I told him that I'll call him later, and then went to my car and drove home. I went to shower straight away, when my husband came home and went to sleep without even kissing me. Once I decided that I was going to see Sam again. That night, I thought that maybe what I'm doing is selfish and wrong, but at least I didn't feel neglected with him. I understood that what I was doing wasn't right, and I'd have to face the consequences eventually. Yet, there was this little voice inside me urging, "Forget the consequences." And that's how things began with Sam. He knew about my husband and child, and he seemed entirely okay with it. I emphasized that we had to keep things extremely discreet and avoid being seen together in public places. Sam resonated that we used to hang out together earlier as well, so we can just hang out like colleagues and friends. I agreed to that. Everything was going well. I didn't have to hide much or think about lies because my husband didn't really care much to ask. He used to just mention that I was home late or he couldn't reach me, but whatever vague reply I gave him sufficed. He never made an effort to know more, even though it should be relieving that my husband wasn't suspicious. It felt bad as well. My husband wasn't suspicious, not because he trusted me, but because he didn't care to be bothered. I used to meet Sam in his home, or he would pick me after work if he was free. We used to meet for lunches and dinner as well. I found myself getting intimate with Sam in unusual places like the car or the elevator, places where there were no cameras around. I never expected that having an affair with my client could be this thrilling. It was a kind of thrill that I'd never experienced before, like an adrenaline rush. I was so accustomed to intimacy in the bedroom that the excitement of being intimate in public spaces and cars felt too tempting to resist. Being with Sam made me realize that I was missing out on a lot. I was finally finding the fun and thrill with Sam that I should have found with my husband. But beggars can't be choosers, so I took what I got and enjoyed it too. My son returned from his summer camp after 2 months. I had to adapt back according to his schedule as well. I got less time with Sam in the initial days, but then I tried to set things up in a way which would give us a lot of time together. There was no end goal of my affair with Sam. I didn't know how to navigate it. When I shared this with Sam, he calmed me down and told me that we don't have to think too far and that we can deal with one day at a time. It felt good to be assured like that. My husband had never assured me like that, mostly because he didn't have time from work. If I was honest, I couldn't blame everything on his promotion. Even without his promotion, he was always occupied with work. I was the one responsible for everything related to our home or our son when it was his responsibility as well. His promotion marked the beginning of the end for us. Previously, he used to spare some time for us on weekends or after dinner, but that changed. However, by then, I was already involved with Sam. I was receiving attention in the bedroom and beyond. Gradually, my husband's behavior affected me less and less each day. It was clear that my husband didn't really care about me. I just refused to see. Earlier, he had not once tried to get intimate with me. Not that I wanted it now, but still. It showed his lack of interest in me. I thought of getting separated from him for good, but I put the thoughts aside for our son. Even though my husband was a not-so-great husband, I know I was a not-so-great wife as well. He was a good father. He made sure that our son got everything he wanted, including his attention. It was a rare time where my husband would put the work aside. Every one of the times happened to be involved with our son. I couldn't separate my son from his father. I couldn't bear the thought of being away from my child. Opting for joint custody was out of the question. I didn't want my son to shuffle between parents. For the sake of my kid, I chose to remain in the marriage. Over time, my affection for my husband faded away. The only thing that truly mattered to me in that household was my son. It was only in his presence that I found true happiness after a long time. My work was going great. Things with Sam were going amazing as well. Things at home were the best they could be, given the scenario. My husband continued to stay with his work. He would have not even noticed if I disappeared from his life. I used to spend my lunchtime with Sam so that I could head straight home after work to my son. Sam understood my situation and adjusted our meetings to whatever was convenient for me the best. He was so understanding about everything, it was insane. I thought everything was going according to what I had planned, but turned out that I was completely wrong. Everything had taken a quick and unexpected turn for the worst. One day my phone fell down the stairs when I was leaving for lunch with Sam. I thought of getting it fixed later. As I couldn't wait for longer to meet Sam, Sam asked me to go to his home with him. It was a Friday, so I was able to easily ditch the rest of the workday. I went to his home with him. I went home around 6, which was the same time I usually went home after work. My son wasn't at home as he usually would be. Instead, only Olivia, our hired nanny, was there. She explained to me that my son had developed a high fever at school and needed immediate attention, so he was taken to the hospital. His teacher had called me many times but couldn't get through. My husband picked up the call and was there with him in the hospital. I rushed to the hospital. It was because of my stupid phone that my son was without me in that hospital. I saw my husband sitting with our son while our son was sharing some story about his school. I rushed to my son's side immediately. He was feeling better then. My husband didn't ask me anything then. Soon, the doctor joined us and told us that my son had caught some flu and was fine to go home now. I took our son in my car to home while my husband said that he needed to get to the office as he left his work in a hurry to get here. I went home and put our son to sleep after feeding him. I made a mental note to get my phone fixed the next day itself. I went to sleep in my son's room that night. I got up in the middle of the night around 2 a.m. to find my husband standing by the door. He was staring at me. I got scared at first, but then realized it's just him and released a breath of relief. I saw that he was still in his work clothes and asked when he got home. He told me that he was just getting home and wanted to check on our son before going to sleep. I nodded to him. He then asked me where I was when the teacher had called. I explained that my phone had malfunctioned, which led to their inability to reach me. He seemed skeptical, so I gestured toward my phone on the nearby shelf, displaying its cracked screen. However, he wasn't convinced and informed me that he'd contacted my office. According to them, I had left for lunch and hadn't returned. He told me. I was not surprised that he had called my office. It was sort of obvious, but I was so caught up with my son that I didn't think what to tell him. I just blurted about going to a meeting which ran late. He didn't give me any expression to tell me if he believed me or not. I hoped that he believed it, and then went back to take care of my son. The next day, I didn't go to the office to stay at home with my son, but I needed to get my phone fixed. So I left for a little while Olivia was there with my son. I got a new phone as my phone would have taken too much time to get fixed. The first person I contacted was Sam and told him everything. He was very understanding like always, and said he was there for me. My husband didn't talk to me about anything after he asked me where I was. He just got ready and then left for the office in the morning. Everything went fine for the next few days. My son had gotten better and had started going to school again. I had also started going back to the office. I met Sam on my lunch breaks one Friday when I got back home. My husband was already there waiting for me. I was shocked to see him home. I didn't remember the last time he had come back home before me. I smiled at him and then was going to take a shower when he stopped me. He inquired about my whereabouts during my lunch break, leaving me puzzled since I couldn't recall going anywhere. He explained that he had visited my office, seeking my signature on bank documents. I reiterated my previous explanation, and this time, he appeared to accept it. He nodded and let me go. Before letting me go, he just whispered that he trusts me. The guilt those words brought to me cannot be described. I was having an affair behind his back, and this guy trusted me. I was so overwhelmed with guilt that I couldn't stop crying in the shower. He hasn't been a good husband to me, but I wasn't a good wife to him either. It felt so wrong to know that he trusted me when I was sleeping with someone else. I knew that I couldn't continue this. I had two options. Either I had to come clean with my husband and end things with him, or to end things with Sam. I knew I had to make a decision, and the thought of losing any of them brought more tears. Sam was a good person. He'd been so good to me. But there was no future for us. I couldn't just leave my son and my husband. I thought it was finally time to end this thing between me and Sam. I had made up my mind and decided that after the weekend was over, I would meet him again. It would be the last time I met him. Turned out that it was too late to make that decision. The next day was a Saturday, and I had plans of staying home with my son. I didn't know what my husband was up to that day. He never used to tell me anything after his promotion. He was mostly always working, even on weekends. My husband decided to stay home instead of going to the office, which surprised me. It wasn't the first time. The day before, he was also home earlier than usual. A sense of unease gnawed at me, whispering that something was off, but I brushed it aside as my own guilt and fear of being discovered. As our son went to the park with Olivia, my husband and I found ourselves in the living room together. He told me that he needed to talk to me. His tone was so calm and neutral that I didn't think he knew about Sam and me. I was wrong about that. My husband knew. He told me calmly how he's aware of my affair. He said that he had his doubts when I started coming home late. But he got his confirmation after our son was hospitalized. He told me how he used to come by my office at lunchtime and watched me getting in the car with Sam. He showed me the pictures of me and Sam he had taken on his phone. I couldn't lie to him anymore. There wasn't any point anyway. He had pictures of me and Sam kissing each other. I was all over him in those pictures. I took the only option I had. I accepted it. He nodded and asked me how it all started. I told him how everything began. I told him that it all started after he got his promotion and started ignoring me. I told him everything I felt and how Sam made me feel. Wanted. He gave me a neutral expression throughout as I told him everything. I explained my plan to end everything on Monday, but he didn't buy it. He laughed and said I didn't have to lie anymore. He already knew my secret. Despite insisting on my honesty, he refused to trust anything I said. Now, he told me that he was working really hard at work so that he could give us the life we wanted. He told me about his plans to take us on an international trip soon. I knew that I wasn't a good husband, but I never cheated on you. He told me harshly and continued with, I wanted to provide everything to you and our son. I started crying after that. I couldn't hold my tears any longer. It didn't deter him from speaking what he had to say. He told me that he wanted to confront me the previous day itself, but he was giving me a chance to speak the truth by myself. That's why he had told me that he trusted me. He wanted to see my response. I had truly messed up. He left me in the living room crying. He came back and gave me a glass of water. I was shocked at the gesture and then saw the envelope he was holding. I knew what was inside that envelope. I knew it was divorce paper, but I wasn't ready for it. I had got them ready after I saw you in the parking lot. He expressed that he wasn't willing to continue in this relationship, while I hesitated to accept the envelope he handed me. As I suspected, it contained divorce papers. I knew our situation was my fault, yet that didn't lessen the pain. Upon reading the papers, I was stunned to discover that he was requesting full custody of our son. I told him that he cannot do it. He told me it was for the good if our son stayed with him instead of me. I told him that I'm never going to sign it with those terms. He told me that it didn't matter what I wanted. He was going to make sure that he took my son with him. He said it's best if I just sign it without any drama and he'll let me meet my son. Otherwise, he'll tell my son that I was cheating on his father and he'll grow up to hate me. I couldn't believe my ears. I didn't know if he was being serious or not. How could he threaten me with something like that? Our son was 5 years old. Knowing something like that would break his heart. I knew that my husband would do anything to get what he wanted. It was possible that he would use my son like this. I had already hurt my son by having an affair, even if he didn't know that it was still wrong on my part. I was desperate to prevent his growing animosity towards me. I pleaded with my husband, reasoning that taking our son away from me wouldn't benefit either of us. With his demanding job, it made more sense for our son to stay with me. I begged and wept, but he remained steadfast in his decision. He gave me an ultimatum: 2 days to sign the papers. He also added how I would have to end everything with Sam immediately, or he'll show our son. My picture is with Sam. I had no idea if he was being serious or not, but I couldn't risk my son getting traumatized by seeing his mother like that. I wanted a healthy future for him. I called up Sam after my husband left me in the living room and ended everything with him. Sam knew that my son was the most important to me, so he didn't argue or anything. He just told me to take care and to not hesitate to reach him if I needed something. He didn't know, but I was grateful for him. I called up my lawyer and told them about the custody terms in the divorce papers. He said that it was well within my rights to refuse to agree to those terms and that I can fight for sole custody. I couldn't tell him that my husband was blackmailing me to tell my son about my secret. I ended the call with him shortly. I knew there was no way for me. I had to lose my son either way. Either I refuse to sign this and he'll know about my secret and hate me forever, or I sign these papers and he will stay with his father. I decided to opt for the second choice and signed the papers. The thought of staying away from my son was agonizing, but the idea of facing his hatred was unbearable. I hoped that in his memories, I'd remain someone he cherished. My husband seemed content with my signature and granted me a week to explain to our son why I'd be leaving the house. He knew it was going to be so hard for me to tell my son that when I didn't even want to leave him, I was sure he was getting his revenge for making me suffer like this. I knew I had to suffer the consequences of my affair, but I never thought that I'd have to lose my son because of it. I didn't ask for a divorce earlier because of my son, and today I had to leave him. Telling my son that his mom is going away was the most heartbreaking thing I had to go through. He cried so much the first time I told him that I started crying myself. Even thinking about that makes me want to cry, with a lot of effort. I made him understand that Dad will take care of him, and we'll keep meeting very soon. The pain in his eyes made me want to break down then and there. I pretended to be strong for my little guy. I spent the entire week with him trying to savor all the moments. When Friday came around and I dropped him off at school, I told him that I won't be home when he gets back from school. He started crying again, and I hugged him, telling him that I'll meet him very soon. My husband had seen me with my son throughout the week. I had some hope that seeing me so miserable will make him change his mind, but nothing. I had called the movers to move my luggage to my company's apartment. I could only get that in such short notice while I was getting out of the home. My husband was there. He showed no emotions, neither did I expect him to. He had no emotions for me. He told me that he had filed for the divorce and that his lawyers will be in contact with me for everything after that. I nodded in agreement. I wished him to take good care of our son and expressed my apologies for everything. He assured me that he'd handle our son's well-being and urged me not to worry about him anymore. After that, I remained silent and left the house. It's been over a month since those events unfolded. The divorce process is still going on. Our divorce lawyers had told us that since it's uncontested divorce, it will be over soon. I have shifted to the accommodation provided by the company. I didn't have the energy to look for anything else. My ex-husband has allowed me to talk thrice to my son. I miss him so much. It hurts my heart. The only relief is that my son is being treated well. My husband has always been a good father. I knew he'll take care of my son. Well, my boy told me that his dad comes back home early after work and then plays with him. It was bittersweet to know that only if he had come home early for me, we wouldn't have been in this situation right now. I know I cannot fault him for my infidelity, but it hurts to know that he couldn't make these changes in his life when I was there. I try to focus on my work now since I have nothing else to do. I never contacted Sam after that call in my home. He hasn't tried to contact me either. I'm grateful for that. I don't think I could continue anything after being away from my son like this. The regret of having an affair is too heavy on my heart. I wish I had never done anything. If I hadn't acted on impulse and didn't start my affair with Sam, I still would be living with my son. And maybe my husband would have started giving me some attention back after some time. I wish I had waited instead of cheating on him like this. Update. It has been 2 months since I left the house. Our divorce has been finalized by the court. When my lawyer asked if I wanted anything from my husband, I straight up refused. I didn't want any of his assets. All I wanted was my son. And since I couldn't have him, anything else didn't interest me a bit. My husband has already started a new chapter. My son mentioned seeing Olivia, our nanny, leaving Dad's room in the morning. It was surprising. Olivia was in her early 30s. Was it that easy for him to move on, I wondered? Then again, I realized I couldn't judge when I was the one who caused the end of our marriage with an affair. It still felt bad, though. I told my son that maybe Olivia forgot something and went to get it from Dad. Even though my ex-husband stooped low to use my son against me. I was not him. I wasn't going to play with my son's feelings to take revenge on his father. I was just happy that I could talk to my son whenever I wanted to. Olivia used to call me when my son asked her to call Mom, and I was grateful for that. Maybe she felt guilty for sleeping with my ex-husband. I still appreciated her doing this. I even took my son on weekends with me. The little time I get to spend with him has become the highlight of my life. He makes sure to tell me every little detail so I don't miss out on anything. The regret of starting the affair hasn't gone away. It hit especially hard when I had to drop my son back to his father's house, to the same house which used to be mine as well. Update. It has been a year since my last update. My son just turned 6 last month. He has adapted to the changes really well. It's been 6 months since he stopped crying for me after I left the house. Now, when I drop him off, he just smiles at me. It's a bittersweet feeling. On one hand, it's a relief that I'm not the cause of his tears anymore. Yet, it also brings a pang of pain, wondering if he misses me despite that smile. Also, my ex-husband has gotten engaged with Olivia. They are set to marry within 6 months, even though I was the one who cheated. It still hurts to see him with someone else. It really did hurt me seeing them together in the house I had built with him. I got to know about their engagement when I went to drop my son back to my ex-husband's place. He was kissing Olivia in a really close way, almost intimate. I couldn't recall the last time he had kissed me like that. I cleared my throat to let them know I was there, and Olivia seemed embarrassed. But instead of being embarrassed, my ex-husband appeared almost pleased that I had seen them. That's when I noticed the ring on Olivia's finger. My ex then announced that he and Olivia were engaged and planning to marry soon. I managed to smile. The look on my ex's face told me that he enjoyed that I felt hurt. He then kissed her again, and I knew he was taking revenge for me cheating on him. I left after kissing my son on the cheeks. I would like to thank everyone who didn't judge me and offered support and empathy. I don't know you all personally, but it meant a lot to me.